Welcome to The Paradigm Shift on 4ZZZ 102.1, where we challenge the assumptions of our current society to resist oppression and investigate alternative ways of living, for a world based on justice, solidarity and sustainability. Welcome to The Paradigm Shift on 4ZZZ 102.1 FM. It's your local community radio station, and my name is Andy, and I'll be with you for the next hour, broadcasting on Yagara and Turrbal country. And today on the show, we are going to be looking across the oceans to other parts of the world, and we're going to be talking about Iran, where there has been massive protests recently, and unfortunately very violent, very brutal government repression and a slaughter of Iranian people. Really, the numbers are not confirmed, but even the Iranian government says they've killed 3,000 people. Most people believe that is a huge underestimate, and the number that has been passed around is more like 15 or 16,000 people killed in a week in Iran, just for being out on the streets protesting. And we are living in crazy times, no doubt about that, although it's easy to forget sometimes. In Australia, we're very lucky, most of us. We can go about our day-to-day life as if none of this is happening, but all around the world there are some crazy things happening, a lot of unrest, and we will be bringing more of it too on the Paradigm Shift. Actually, this will be my last show in the studio for a little while, because I'm going to go live off-grid on a farm in New Zealand for a while to do something different. But you will keep hearing the Paradigm Shift every week, and I've got a few shows ready to come up, and we'll also talk about what's happening in Sudan, which is, of course, quite violent and worrying, and also China. I've spoken to a Uyghur person who has been repressed for a long time, the Uyghur people in China. Of course, earlier, 2 weeks ago, we spoke about Venezuela on this show as well, which had just been invaded by the US. And so we're being very internationalist in outlook on the Paradigm Shift, which I think is important. I think the old slogan of think globally, act locally is a very worthwhile one. We want to stay connected with what's happening around the world, but of course, we also want news that is relevant to everyday life, how we can live better as individuals and as a community. And so got to hold these two things in tension, but we certainly want to connect with things around the world and where we can understand and amplify the voices of people who are struggling to make a better situation in their country, particularly in places like Iran, where there's been a dictatorship for nearly half a century, and a very repressive regime, the Ayatollah's theocratic regime, and it's really crushed the ability for people to organise in a lot of ways, and people are wanting a society that's a bit more free, a bit more economically just, and where a bit more has the opportunity for people to make the kind of Iran they want to live in, rather than being forced to accept that from above. And so my solidarity to the people there, and of course it's just horrific what has happened since the protests started. But we will hear more about that today. Now, I did interview a local Iranian migrant here who does not want to be named, and there are various reasons why, even when you are in Australia, and why you might not want to put your name to expressing any kind of support or opinions about what's going on there, and so I will respect that. But we talk about what has happened and about what the future might look like for Iran, hopefully a better future. And so let's get into that interview now. So many of us would have seen in recent weeks big protests in Iran. To start off with, can you share with us what these protests are about?
I think the recent protests kind of be expected. It's just like a ticking bomb sitting at the corner waiting. It's mainly triggered by a severe economical pressure on the people, which recently gets much worse. It's add up with a gigantic inflations in Iran economy and sudden devaluated currency and widespread corruption in all level of the government caused people really getting frustrated, which is mainly caused by international economical sanction over past years, which lately gets worse, and it's been sitting there for a long time. And it was in a kind of the prices of the daily people needs, like foods and transport, suddenly jump out like 10 times more expensive compared to like 6 or even 3 months ago. And it's worth adding this to the simply people united in hatred of the theocratic governments that rule Iran for 70 years. So like multifactorial, but like I said, the main one in this time was the economy.
So, as I understand it, the protests started in the bazaar or marketplace in Tehran and spread from there. Was there one particular event that sort of caused it to kick off?
If you're gonna make it like in a storyline, the equivalence of the dollar and Iranian currency, it was continuously going up. So we have a bazaar, electronic bazaar, let's call it. In Iran, they buying and selling business is based on the changing in a dollar price. So it was continuously going up. So the shopkeepers couldn't anticipate how much they buy and how much they sell. So practically they paralyzed them from their trades, their daily trades to people. And people also didn't know if they buy is good at the moment. So everything just put on hold for a while. And then they suddenly protested simply against that in the electronic bazaar. They close all the shops, get into the street, start protesting the economical situations. So the government start responding them by changing the central bank managers. But it doesn't work. It continued. The bazaar goes on close all the shops, and then they get into the street, and then it just gradually go up and get into the level that involve all the other group of the people. I think that was the main storyline. Then everybody just joined, and then the things get escalated from that level.
And at that point, did it go from being specifically about the economy to being more broadly about the Ayatollah's theocratic regime?
Exactly, yeah. Is a very common pattern. It usually starts from something that making people angry for a reason, and then immediately, over a couple of days, it changes against Ayatollahs. It comes in as slogans. All the other people start complaining about their needs, and then they gradually unite it, and then it gets very sharp and escalate to the violent level when the government start have their first shot.
In recent years, there have been a lot of big protests in Iran. There were big student protests about 10 years ago, and then in 2022, there was the Xinjiang Azadi, or Woman Life Freedom protests. Can you tell us how are these recent ones are different or similar to those?
So the big difference is a social level that initiated and the cause. So the Zindagi Azadi or Zanjian Azadi, that different names, it's just triggered by, as many people know it, the cause was the intense restriction of the government posed upon people over many years on the level of their social life and the personal life, and especially against the women and young generation lifestyles. That's the pressure, like getting the people, they talk about it and suddenly something happened, like somebody killed, a woman killed in the street by the police, and then it triggered. So it's more like a social movement. But this one is, I can tell it's just because of the people get fatigued by the economy. This was we can say like a revolution for the bread, this one. And the other ones mainly were a struggle of the people to make a change in the social context, which is like pushed back by the government. But now this one is just like I can tell it's just like a fight for bread. So it's mainly about economy.
Yeah. So the protests, as we said, it started in the bazaar, closing down the shops, and then people taking to the streets to rally. What kind of tactics have the protesters used?
There is none of this. I need a couple of steps back to the previous question. The core of everything is people really get tired of these dictatorships that pose all sort of the limitations from the universities to the economy, extended into the social network of the people, censorships. So this is the main cause, like sharing everything. So this add up to all the recent political and international politics changing and increasing the pressure on the government and weaken them in different sides. They are all just like a fuels in the street waiting for a small sparkle to burn. So it means that there's no strategy. So there is not union. Over the past 47 years, the government just like suppressed all the social activities, association, institutions, everything, like even any activities for human rights, even animal rights. They are all suppressed by government. So people never had the chance to get together, have strategies, have an approach for these times. So when it triggers, it's just widespread. But simply I can say there's no strategies. They get into the street and then they use the internet, their phones, their relationships. Government stop the internet usually in some levels or others, and then they subside it. So I can answer your question in brief. There is no particular strategies.
It's just an outpouring of feeling.
Exactly, outpouring of feeling, but with a little bit of copy-pasting the strategies left over from the previous revolution and some hints from some leaders that they are mainly in jails at the moment. But there's nothing direct like happening in the street that following the special order.
So, as many people would have seen, the response from the Iranian government has been very violent and very repressive, which is common for that government. But was it a surprise to see it as brutal as it has been?
This really, the government response is not surprising at all. If you look at the current Iranian government and its past history, since revolution, their history is so red. I can call it so red. That does not make violence a surprise for us. But this time, the scale of the violence was like very scary. It seems that like as if they planned for it. They waited for 2 days with showing the very peaceful, not very much responsive. Then they suddenly cut the internet and get in the streets, and then they shoot people like with a warfare without any warning. They just get into the street and kill the people. And the number of the people that, because they cut the internet and the phones and the mobiles, and also they use the army level jamming system that to jam even the Starlink receivers. We don't have a exact estimation, but it is by the sources coming so far, by the pictures published and some human rights institutions. The estimation is something between 3,000 that their sources said, the government sources, up to the 16,000, and some resources even say higher numbers of 20,000, which is we cannot base on them, in 2 days. So like imagine 16,000 or even 3,000 people in 2 days in like many cities, even the very small cities that the population like not going more than 10,000 people. It's huge. It's huge, surprising and frightening. The message to the people that if anybody come in, I kill, and I not shying about it.
Is this more violent than they've ever been before?
It is more violent than ever been before in all Middle East. So like somehow we know in Syria, like in past 5, 6 or 10 years, after many try of the rebels against the governments, they killed something around 10 to 20,000 people in 10 years. They killed like the same amount in 2 days. So you can make imaginations that how would be the city look like. So we sporadically lately, like in past days, have a chance to talk to the people, although they're still very scared to talk, but they said simply that the street was red. They bring like a special cleaning machines to clean the city. Like every street, like small pictures come here and there. They burns like many homes. They burns many cars. And they put it as like a spies from Israel and America did it. So, but people saw their agents come and like burning the people's shops or home or just like the cars. So the scale is just like a war zone, the picture we had so far.
The Iran government has said there were a number of police or revolutionary guards that were killed as well. Do you believe that's true?
They say it all the time. Like every time they say, they said that we were nice, they attack us, we defend ourselves. But this time I kind of believe it. Like if we put all the puzzles of the past year together, you can see the first direct air bombing by US and other neighbor countries to Iran, and then following the very widespread system of the spies that they confess they have, we can tell at least in a part they might be some interferences by them, and definitely in between some the guards killed, but the proportion is not comparable. It just is not in that scale they claim. But it could be. People definitely get angry when they get shot, and they retaliate. And they said some terrorists inside, they shoot the people, the police government. Nobody can confirm them, but I can say it's possible.
So now, have the protests stopped, and what is likely to happen next?
It is in a limbo. Practically nobody knows. So I just picture this to myself, like imagine they said by the government claim and by the opposition claim, like millions this time, 1 million people in the city is there. And in 2 days, they are all just shot, killed, put inside and threatened daily. So They force the shop to open. The things looks normal. People in just like a shock at the moment, and we don't know what they're gonna go, which side they're gonna go. It's complete silence at the moment. Definitely, it has a lots of negative effects on the people hope to change from inside, but I reckon it just like the other times that it happens is just, I can call it like a fire under the ashes. It's waiting for a small wind to flare up again, especially with the government too weak and unable to manage the daily life of the people and the massive threat from the outside. We don't know what's going to happen. We need to see and wait. Lots of theories come lately, but we don't really know about them.
Now, it has been suggested that what the protesters really want is regime change. Is that the case? Is that what they're asking for? And if yes, is it very likely to happen?
It's likely to happen or not is really, you need to be a magician to say anything about this. But what people really want, they see it closer than ever, that I can tell. But the ideal is they topple down the government. They don't want anything less than that. They want to topple down the government with any price, but ideally without a war, which is sitting just down all the border of the Iran. And definitely no one wants to see the Iran get fragmented after this topple down. It would be like a vacuum of the power after they topple down, especially because they destroy all the social and political institution over 47 years. If they said that it would be a mess after they topple down. But that's the ideal. That's the ideal. I think nobody, or hardly you can find people in Iran wants anything less than that.
And yet the regime seems very strong. How is it staying in power with so much opposition?
The dictatorship regimes are so strong because they just uprooted any social context between the people. They rely on their minority, which is said to be or estimated to be 10% of the population. They feed them, they take care of them. They are a kind of I can say, mafia-like, like a groups that running the country practically. So they feed them by going against the sanctions somehow. Simply they feed their supporters and give them a gun, and probably so far that's the way they last. And what is gonna happen next, pretty very hard to predict. So everybody says that it's gonna be a war. It's gonna be a war from outside. And if you look recent movements of the like army's movement or military movement in an area around Iran, especially the US president promised to the Iranian people that they're gonna attack Iran to save them, which the most frightening things now is the shadow of the war over the country.
Yes, well, this is an interesting question for us in the Western world of what a good foreign intervention might look like. There's been sanctions for a long time by Western governments, and earlier this year, of course, there was bombing by the US and Israel. But I wonder, what does a good foreign support for the people of Iran look like?
Good foreign support is no more sanction. Please, I get more sanctions. This sanction just weaken the people from now on. They weaken them more. They make the government untouched because they focus all the resources they have. They bypass all the sanctions in the favor of themselves, and left people like poorer and weaker, so they not able to do anything. I think the best help is like we do need internet, and we do need help the world to give us the internet, some help us like a help technology like satellite internets. During that social movements, they cut the internet, and when the internet cut, this is the things the government really is scared of. And this time they just put all the effort on cut the Iran down from the rest of the world. So if the message goes anywhere with any creativity, kind of help, like it needs a governmental interference in giving the people the kind of the satellite internet. So that's the biggest help. Like during the last protest, we have some kind of the proxies or different softwares, and the result was a big success. Later on, government like a step back on some pressure on the people because it gets so popular all around the world. So that's the biggest help. Apart from the pressure by human rights institutions, they are also very helpful. Try to empower the real leaders of the people that still have some popularity inside, like a Nobel Prize winner, some other leaders from born from the previous struggles, like Mr. Tajzadeh, Nargis Mohammadi, and others that they are already in jail, and then they are the only ones sending the messages to the people, and the people are still listening to them. So empowering them, supporting it by widespreading the message among the people of the community, that's another things, and stopping the more sanction against the people, that's all can happen, and kind of stop this war. That's this war just doesn't just hit the people more. It doesn't move them. It just destroy the country completely, and that's not what most of the people, not all of the people, most of the people wants.
Now, you mentioned a couple of Iranian protest leaders there, and one name that keeps coming up in Western media is Reza Pahlavi, the son of the former Shah, who's been based in the United States since the revolution in 1979. I'm interested to know, what role, if any, does Reza Pahlavi have in what's been happening in Iran recently?
He, in a vacuum of the real leaders and destroying all the social institutions, I think he's born and it's fed by the media, and find some supporters, like in the recent years. He is a last one. It is what is left to do something. It has supporters between the people of the Irans, but the problem is he's never been in Iran for 47 years. So the direct connection with people is disrupted. It's mainly propaganda through the TVs and the medias, that many of them is proven to funded by foreign countries. So that make a first problem of the people not feeling their independence. But I can confess that he had a rule in the current one. After 2-3 days that demonstration running in the street, it suddenly pop on the internet and ask people to come to the street. It caused more people come, but he also made an excuse for the government to suppress people harder and more violently. So in brief, I can say now he is one almost serious options, but it's not the only one. This issue of the Reza Pahlavi and the leadership is cause a big arguments and between the people mainly outside of Iran. So everybody have a different opinion. So you just take it as my opinion, not everybody else.
Now, so many people have died in the recent protests in Iran, and many more must be in mourning or in shock, and probably a lot of people recovering from injuries as well. Do you think, have there been positives to come out of it?
The main things is, although it hasn't get into the point that we wish to get, but in general, any kind of this demonstration of the people power is just like a crack in a statue of the dictatorship. Each crack will count. Each crack cause more people detach from the body of the government supporters and join the people force. That's the main things. And it's, although on the surface is finished, is not finished. As I said, it's waiting for the next excuse to just flare up again. And hopefully in one of them they topple down the government.
Now, tonight, you and other Iranian people in Brisbane are holding a candlelight vigil for the protesters at Parliament House in the city. Can you tell us about that?
It's an idea to mainly getting together in silence, hugging each other in a memory of the real courageous people. And we decided included like a theatrical street performance with supported by some music. And it's good that this messages goes into the cities people and kind of give them a knowledge of what's going on, or give them a heads up of what's going around us. Mainly, it's just gathering us mourning.
So it's partly to communicate to people of Brisbane and partly for the Iranian diaspora here to be together and mourn. Do you think that also actions like this communicate to Iran at all, the protesters or the government?
Not at the moment, but they will soon, or they will eventually, because they cannot stop keep the internet disconnected forever, although they will pose lots of censorships.
Okay, well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you, Andy.
You are listening to 4ZZZ. The Paradigm Shift is the show. We have been speaking with our guest, a local person from Iran who is helping to organise. There is a candlelit vigil happening tonight outside Parliament, next to the Botanic Gardens there. And I'll just read the description for the event here, because I think that will, give you the vibe of both what that is about, but also what the many in the Iranian community are feeling right now. So it says, "We, the immigrant community, away from the motherland and away from our loved ones, with a sad and wounded heart, we will gather Friday night. We are mourning for thousands of lost lives, thousands of people who were killed by the Islamic Republic and their revenge. Our collective history and memory will remain forever. With words and kind hugs, we light a candle for each other, for the lives that were taken unjustly, for the names that should never be forgotten. May these candles be light, a little bit of the darkness of this deep sorrow, and we stand together. May it be a balm for common wounds. May their memory be remembered. May their name be eternal." That is the description of the vigil tonight, and yes, you can get along with that if you want to, in a very quiet and somber way, show your solidarity with the people in Iran who have been on the street, so courageous, just incredibly courageous. You can only hope, that if we were called on to take an act like that we would have the same courage. But also with the people in Australia, there's a big Iranian diaspora from, half a century of refugees leaving that regime in our country, and many of them will be there. It's also, as alluded to in that interview, it's a very interesting time for Iranian opposition politics. I guess there's different ideas of what a future Iran should look like, and that's a a tough question for some of those people as well. And just in case you thought there's too much good news in the world at the moment and not enough terrible things happening, one war that may have escaped your attention, and it's not far from Iran, is in Syria, where the Kurdish autonomous region of Syria has essentially been invaded by the Syrian government, backed by the Turkish government, and what's sort of framed as a civil war is more an act of hostility from the current Syrian government after there have been negotiations that one would have thought were in good faith about how the two can coexist. But yes, there's been a lot of fighting there, and the Kurdish region there is not just that there are people who deserve to be able to live in peace and not be invaded, but also they've been really trying to find new ways of living away from the kind of autocracies that have been so common in the Middle East or Western capitalist society, oligarchy, and those kind of experiments are hard work, but even harder when they face such hostility from neighbouring countries. And so the Kurds in Syria, who I hope can hold on and I hope can find a bit of support from the Western world that has so many times abandoned the Kurds, who, as the saying says, often have no friends but the mountains. Yes, there's so many things going on in the world. All I can say, try and do what you can. Let's try and do what good we can, and try to all work together, make a better world. Remember that there's always good if you can look around and find it, and there's always bad too if you want to focus your attention on it. We shouldn't hide away from it, but it can get you down. And so I hope you find some ways of keeping on going, finding the positives, and making a positive difference in your local neighbourhood, in the people around you, and ultimately in our world. And as I said, I'll be away for the next 2 months, but you will hear the Paradigm Shift on your radio every Friday, sent in across the ditch from Aotearoa. So I'll see you then.